Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Kiddush Club.
So where's the cake?
I know. I was thinking, you read my mind, Berdina. Where is the cake?
Well, we are close friends. We should think alike.
What is the wine? Yeah. What is the whiskey?
Well, that I can do
No.
without. That would knock me
You know, I will tell you a story before we start. And that is that, you know that I also teach a Torah class every Thursday. It's online. It's called Torah L'chaim. Do you know the story of the name Torah L'chaim? The thing is, I always envisioned that a synagogue should have a Torah class after Kiddush, okay? And I did it for many years. But then we also started to have the Kiddush Club here on the Bima. We'll have a little bit of whiskey. But then I noticed that some of the people will come to the Torah class after with a shot, right? To have another L'chaim during the Torah class. That's why it was called Torah L'chaim. Now you know the story of why the class on Thursday is called Torah L'chaim. Then it was moved to Thursday, and it's online, and there is no L'chaim, but we kept the name. There are lots of things like that. I will tell you another of my favorite anecdotes. One of my favorite Jewish choirs is the Miami Boys Choir.
Oh, yes.
And Dor Hadash, my youth choir, we do lots of songs from them in our performances. Yeah. So, you know why it's called Miami Boys Choir? Because they're in New York.
She was talking to me.
I was saying, you know why it's called Miami Boys Choir? Because they're in New York.
Is there a community called Miami there?
What happened is, they used to be in Miami.
Oh, I see.
Actually, the composer is Canadian. He used to be in Toronto. His name is Irachmiel Began, and he used to have the Toronto Boys Choir. Then he moved to Miami because he developed some asthma in Toronto, and the doctors say you should move to a warmer climate. So he went to Miami, and he started the Miami Boys Choir, became very successful, and then he realized that the way to move it to the next level is to move to New York. We have all the talent and everything. So he moved to New York, but he kept...
Asthma?
Yes. Eventually he grew out of it, outgrew the asthma. But then it's called Miami Boys Choir, but it's in New York. So this is Torah L'chaim, but there is no L'chaim. And there is this called Kiddush Club, but there is no Kiddush. Go figure. This is the Jewish world. You know the Amidah that we say every day? If you got daily minyan, we had Amidah. You know how many, the Amidah that has another name. It's called the Shmone Esre. What does Shmone means? 18. You know why it's called Shmone Esre? Because it has 19 blessings. You know why it's called the Shmone Esre, which means 18, and the joke is because it has 19 blessings. So, yeah. Now, it's because there was another blessing that it was added after, but you always keep the original name. It's very Jewish.
It does fit, doesn't it? Because when you're 18, you're in your 19th year. So I guess they count the same way.
Well, but it's very Jewish to keep the name if the circumstances change, and then you keep it. So talking about numbers, and 18 and all that, we are going to talk a little bit about the concept of bar mitzvah. And I know that in this day and age, we call it B mitzvah, because it could be bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. You also have people in these days that they don't identify it with any gender or sex, so it's B mitzvah, right? But I still call this class the bar mitzvah, because the specific example that this parsha brings is connected with the concept of bar mitzvah, because it's talking about two male characters who identified as male. Okay? And those are, and I will give you a little spoiler, those are Jacob and Esau. In Hebrew is Yaakov and Esav. Those two, they were twin brothers, and something happened in their lives that the rabbis believe is a hint of the bar mitzvah. You know that? And that's what we are going to study. So I'm going to welcome everyone at home, by the way. I see the numbers climbing, so it's great. Welcome. I'm using this camera for them.
Can I make a request for the future?
Can I say no to you?
No. Larger font, please.
I thought about that, but then it will mean that I have to use more paper.
Well,
And we try to be very conscious. Sorry? Yeah, but that was a glitch on the computer, okay? But it's, I know. Wait, I will do it. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you. Okay. So the first thing, and the other thing you can do, I guess, Jerome taught me this one. When you used to come to class, that he will have a device and read it from his device because he was reading in the online version. Remember that, Jerome? Yeah. So let's go to the Parsha, guys. This week's Parsha, Genesis 25:27. It's talking about Jacob and Esau. And it says, Vayigdlu anearim. The lads, or the young men, grew up, and Esau became one who knows hunting, a man of the field. But Jacob was a wholesome man, abiding in tents. What is this verse teaching us? Because as the rabbis will say, nothing is in the Torah just because. Nothing. So, if the Torah makes a point that they grew up, right? It means that all of a sudden, they became different. You know, when you have a kid that is not a little kid anymore, and, but still behaving like a kid, what do you tell them? Grow up. Because you have to be different.
They didn't become different. They were born with whatever they had. That's what they became.
Yes, but we are talking about behavior. It looks like up to one point of their lives, you couldn't tell one from another. They were kids.
Yeah.
And they were doing things that every kid does. And that's something that is related to childhood. They do kid stuff. And then you would say, you have no right to get upset because they're kids, right? You can't tell a 5-year-old, oh, come on, grow up. Doesn't make any sense. But there is certain age that if you're still observing in the individual childhood-like behavior, you may have the right to say, grow up. That behavior, sorry?
There's a much nicer way to say that.
Maybe. But I like it, the grow up. Now, I think there are worse ways of saying it, worse ways. But it's the concept of grow up, it means there are certain behaviors that are expected from a grown-up, right? That you cannot expect that from a child. So when you say to somebody grow up, it means behave like a grown-up. Take responsibilities, don't lie, measure consequences, because one of the things that kids do is they don't measure consequences. They do whatever they want to do without thinking how it affects other people. And you will see that, for example, in the life of Esau. He was hungry. So what did he do to get a plate of food? What did he use as currency? First, the birthright, right? He didn't think that in the future he's going to need it because he was hungry today. That is a childlike behavior.
Yeah, very immature.
Very mature to do that, not thinking in the future. In fact, in the Torah, he said, why do I need the birthright that I'm going to die anyway? Maybe he thought he was going to die young because of he was a character that was always taking risks and going out in the field, probably encountering, dangerous beasts and wild animals. I'm going to die. What do I need it?
Or his dad was going to live forever.
Yeah, and then eventually, he realized, no, I'm going to make it, and now I gave it away. Well, back to the verse. The lads grew up. So let's go to the text B and listen to this. This is from the Midrash Rabbah, by the way. Midrash, this is an interpretation of the book of Genesis. Beautiful text. Rabbi Levi said, they, who is they, Jacob and Esau, were like a myrtle and a wild rose bush that were growing side by side. So it means that when a myrtle and a rose bush are just blossoming, they're just like how you call it when they're little saplings? Or that's for trees only?
A bud.
Sorry?
A bud.
A bud. So when they're just buds, it looks like they are very similar, right? Then when they start developing, you can tell that they are two different flowers. But at the beginning, they look, unless you're an expert, they look the same. That's what Rabbi Levi said here. Okay, so myrtle and wild rose bush that were growing side by side. When they had grown and blossomed, one gave forth its fragrance, and the other gave forth its thorns. Similarly, for the first, listen to this, 13 years. Sounds familiar, the number? 13, bar mitzvah, right? So for the first 13 years, both of the boys went to school and came home from school. I mean, first 13, they were children, playing games, went to school, so forth. After 13 years, however, one of them, Jacob, began to go to the house of study, and the other one, Esau, began to go to idolatrous shrines. Said Rabbi Eliezer, a man must be responsible for his son until the age of 13. Thereafter he might say, blessed is he who has exempted me from being punished on account of this one. Have you ever heard that phrase? Traditional communities, they still say it. They still say it. The day of the bar mitzvah, usually the father will put a hand on the boy's head and he will say in Hebrew the formula. Baruch sheptarani meonsho shelazeh. Blessed be the one who exempt me from the responsibilities of this one. It's very harsh. That's why usually conservative and reform synagogues, they don't do it anymore, because they will have to spend half the service trying to explain the meaning behind it so people won't get offended for what they say. Or some other synagogues, they say it, but they never translate it. But it's coming from here, from the Midrash Rabbah, where it says, that's why at the age of 13, the father will say, Baruch sheptarani me'ensho shilazeh, blessed be God who exempt me from the responsibilities of this one. Up to the age of 13, I was responsible for my son. And if the son made a mistake, it's on me. But from now on, thank God, if he makes a mistake, it's on him, not on me anymore. Even if not legally, spiritually. Yes?
I can't remember, maybe it's me. 13, where did it become 13? How did it become 13? I know we're discussing it, but...
Why the number 13, you ask?
I want to remember.
The Midrash...
Pick that time to say you've got to grow up or you're a man.
We take the 13 because the Midrash said so.
Because it said so. Period.
There is another source in the Mishnah, this one is from the Midrash Rabbah. There is another one in the Mishnah that we are going to see it, read it, hopefully this class. I don't know if we're going to be able to cover all the material, but it says that there is another opinion that the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvah, because the other one does mention girls, is attached to puberty.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
It's in the Mishnah. The problem with that is that rabbis always favored sources that they are time specific, if possible. Because you can plan ahead. Can you imagine if you had to plan a bar mitzvah of your son based on, how do you know whenever they're going to go through puberty? We are not prophets, right? I guess back in the day, whenever they went through puberty, they will organize the bar mitzvah the next week. But that's not the way we do it, and so the rabbis could have chosen that. And then who's going to check if they went through puberty? Are you going to check the bodies? It's embarrassing. So they use this source, we don't know where it's coming from, that is mentioned in the number 13, and that's the way it went. Okay? That's why it's an arbitrary number at the end of the day. There is another Mishnah, I think it's in Pirkei Avot, that also mentions, he said, at 13 to the mitzvot. So the number was somehow there. Maybe it was an average of the age where boys would go through puberty. But it is related to that, and you can see it on this text that is related to the concept, hey, grow up. You're already a teen.
So that's boys. What about girls?
It will come later on, how it's. But originally it was for boys, because the concept of bar mitzvah means you are responsible for the mitzvot, of the commandments. Women were, and in some communities still are, mostly exempt from the commandments. So it didn't make any sense to make a ceremony to say, from now on, you are responsible, because there are virtually no difference in their responsibilities from before bat mitzvah and after bat mitzvah. But for the boys, it is. Like coming to minyan, put on tefillin, and
Yes.
you name it. Yeah.
And wasn't the parent responsible for the daughter for whatever she did until she married?
Yeah, but that was about vows. There is a source talking about up to which age the parents are responsible for the vows of the children. But it's also related to the number 12 and 13. But there is another source that said, no, but the women, if, the father will be responsible up to the age of 12 if she lives in the house, but once she marries, now the husband has to approve the vows of the daughter. We all know this, that women were as a disadvantage in Jewish law. I can try to sugarcoat it to you, but for what reason? It's a reality. That's why liberal communities in this day and age were trying to revert that, because we are aware that it's a reality, right? So yeah, let's continue with text C. And we have it here. A man must be responsible for his son until the age of 13 to rebuke him for any wrong that he does. And you know that rebuke is a mitzvah, one of the 613 commandments in Judaism. Remember, 613. Have you ever wondered what are these 613 commandments? You can go actually and buy a book that is called Sefer HaMitzvot. What it does is it lists all the 613 commandments, and you can read a little bit about each one of them. It's the best way to get familiar with all the 613 commandments. Now, if you think that Judaism has only 613 commandments, you're fooling yourselves. Because the number 613 is only from the mitzvot coming from the Torah. You also have many others coming from the rabbis, that they are not listed there, and many others that they came through tradition, that they are also not listed there. So when somebody asks you, do we have more or less than 613? We have way more. Way more. Okay? So, one of the 613 commandments is the mitzvah of rebuking. It's called tochecha. And we have the obligation of tochecha, of rebuking, to everyone, but especially with our children. Okay? Up to what age? 13. 13 is when you are going to rebuke them for everything they do, so they can learn. After that is when you start treating your children like you will treat anybody else, any other adults. That you rebuke other people with more caution, right? So, yeah. Age of 13. So, for until the age of 13, a boy is open to accepting his father's admonitions and correcting his ways. Since it is the father's responsibility to reprimand his son, should he fail to do so, it is he who will be subject to the punishments associated with his son's misdeeds. After the age of 13, a father's rebuke is no longer effective, and the boy's spiritual faculties are sufficiently developed for him to be held responsible for his own misdeeds. Is this clear? So basically what it said, after the age of 13, why do you have to be so careful of rebuking your children? Because it's not just about them misbehaving. It's everything they do goes into your spiritual account. And then when Yom Kippur comes, you have to atone for your mistakes and their mistakes. After the age of 13, you atone only for your own mistakes. And now the boy, bar mitzvah, the girl, bat mitzvah, they have to atone for their own mistakes whenever they come to Yom Kippur. That's what it says here. So it's a very interesting concept, right? That's why it's important to find, and that's something that in Shaare Zedek we take it very, very seriously, to get young people coming to synagogue, especially for the high holidays. We try to have a space for everyone, because now they have to engage in the process of teshuvah after they pass the age of bar bat mitzvah. It's a very important thing. Before, all you needed is a parent who will go to synagogue to say chatati, right? And then you're fine, not after the age bar bat mitzvah. Any comments?
Yes, I have a question. How would you handle this type of a situation with immature children? You have a son, you have a daughter. The daughter comes to you and says, at age 10, you're supposed to treat your two children exactly the same, right? And I said, well, it's very, very important to be fair. You must always be fair. Well, then why are you not punishing my brother? And I said, well, what did your brother do? Well, nothing, but I did. And if you're going to punish me, why aren't you punishing him? Now, how would you handle that? How would, from the writings, how would you handle something like that?
Well, it's one of the most difficult things of parenthood, right? Because even though, from your heart you know that you are treating them the same, in the sense that you recognize that they're different, right? But sometimes the kids don't see it that way. Look what happened with Joseph and his brothers.
That's right. He was the favorite.
Well, he was supposedly the favorite. Because if you study the Parsha, it says that back in and this is also, you need to understand history a little bit and how traditional families in the Middle East work. That it was always one child that from childhood, they always knew that he would be the one taking care of the parents as they grow old. Right? Sometimes it was the youngest, because the others, they are already working, they have to help with the house. So that was Joseph. Joseph would be the one taking care of the parents. So that's why, they will give them the special coat, another thing. But it's hard work. He's the one who has to, all the others were going outside to have fun, but he has to stay home, taking care of the parents, right? But the other brothers didn't like that. I said, well, mom and dad, they care about him more than they care about us. I said, but you're never home. He's the only one staying home helping. So it's one of the
kids perceive things.
difficult things, they don't see that. Because usually we judge the situation from a place of, ego.
Was Benjamin not born?
After. And then you could say that he will be the one doing that when Joseph was out of the picture. And that's why, I don't want to get too far out of this topic, but that's why when Joseph was in Egypt, right? Who stayed?
Benjamin.
Why?
He was looking after his dad.
Yeah. Because that was a tradition. That's the thing. You see, then you start, but you have to understand how family units work in the Middle East. And then you understand these little things. Why would Benjamin stay behind? Because they needed somebody helping them at home. So it's not crazy that they become the favorite, because they're always home, right? So let's continue, because you see, everything starts with this parsha, the concept of bar mitzvah. And it's the age when you start actually recognizing the character of the individuals. I don't know if you ever experienced this, that, this is when you start realizing, what kind of people they're going to be, right? Regardless of...
They show early.
Sometimes. The way I like to the way I like to think about it is like, there are two columns. One, I call it childhood, and the other one is adulthood, right? When they're little kids, it's all about childhood, and then sometimes you have a little bit of adult moment, right? But then as we get older, they start balancing. The time when it's almost 50-50 is when they become bar bat mitzvah. When sometimes they behave like children, and sometimes they behave like adults. You will notice this. When they age 12, 13, 14, that's what it is. It's not that now they're adults. They were never going to be children again, but it's more balanced. And then as they keep growing older, and then again, the adult column still growing, and the other one, keep going down a little bit. But that's why the 13 is the moment where they need guidance the most, because they're approaching adulthood. We'll see that in a minute. Now, listen to this, the next text. It says, the obligation of mitzvot is automatic and begins from the moment the sun sets on the day that a child becomes bar mitzvah, without the need for any agreement or consent on his part. This is something that people ask me. Oh, Rabbi, I never had a bar mitzvah. I'm 70 years old. Should I have it now? Well, let me tell you two things. Yes, you can have a bar mitzvah celebration at age 70 if you never had it. But you became bar mitzvah when you were 13. It's the same thing, right? That it's not that you're not going to not become a year older if you don't celebrate your birthday. Sorry, that trick doesn't work, right? You will age an year regardless if you celebrate your birthday or not. And I know people that they don't like celebrating birthdays. Say, because it reminds me of my age. You become a year older, like it or not. So the bar mitzvah is the same. Age 13, celebration, no celebration. You become 13, right? So therefore, unlike somebody who acts improperly, we attach the term son to bar mitzvah boy. The word bar means son, where a transgressor is termed Baal Aveira, owner of a sin. The conceptual difference between the term son and owner are clear and significant. Why? A son is a son by virtue of his birth, and will never cease to be a son. He might become distant or even estranged, yet he will forever remain part of the family. So too is the status of each Jew. The status hinted at in the words bar mitzvah, the son of a mitzvah. Of each Jew, it is written, you are children of the Lord your God. Each Jew, even the most estranged from a Torah lifestyle, remains Jew. Even if he transgresses, he's still called a Jew. Now, in contrast to bar mitzvah is the Baal Aveira, the owner of a transgression. Ownership comes and goes. And ownership of a transgression can be reversed through repentance and regret. And we learn this every Yom Kippur. Transgression is not part of a Jew's integral nature. It is performed out of free will, choosing between two alternatives. The choice remains after committing a transgression as well, enabling the person to repent. Consequently, the expression for one who transgresses is called a Baal Aveira, not a Bar Aveira. So basically, you become a bar mitzvah, and you can never get it out of you. It's your right, it's your birthright to become bar or bat mitzvah. Mistakes you made in life, maybe you were away from Judaism, that could be reverted. That could be reverted. So yes, if eventually you become older, you want to celebrate your bar mitzvah because you never had it, go ahead and do it. Have the opportunity to celebrate it, but it's already on you, regardless. It's a beautiful thing. In Judaism, we always talk about the difference between what you do and who you are. I don't know if you ever thought about that.
What's the difference?
There is a difference. And it's many different things. When somebody says, for example, I'm a drug addict. No, you're not a drug addict. You do drugs. You are a son or the daughter of God. You understand the difference? the difference between what you do and who you are. Who you are never changes. What you do may change all the time.
So what you're saying is
But-
you're always who you are, but what you do with it.
Yeah, but the problem is sometimes we label people for what they do and we forget who they are. Even they forget who they are. And they need to be reminded who they are.
So maybe a person who remembers who he is, even though he's transgressing, gives him a better chance to come back to normal.
Well, the comeback always starts with a conversation to remind the person who they are.
You have value.
Yeah. Who you are. It's very important for us to understand. You are image of God. That's the only thing you need to know about yourself. You are image of God.
So you never stop being a child of God.
And doesn't matter what you do, that will never change. You're always an image of God. Yes.
We had bad children, but my children taught us that our grandchildren aren't bad. They are children that do bad things.
Yeah, they do bad things. That's what the thing is, a big confusion that we have in society between who we are and what we do. Yeah, it's a reality. So the bar mitzvah is an early reminder of who they are when we have a ceremony. It's a perfect age to remind people who they are, regardless of what they do. Okay, so that's the thing. And let's see. Listen to this. That's what you ask. You know what responsa is? I love this thing. We don't. Now with Google changed the Jewish world, right? Because you type there and then the answer appears on your screen right away. Back in the day, if you want to know something, you didn't have Google, which by the way sounds Yiddish to me, but it's not Jewish. Google, Kindle, it sounds Yiddish. So back in the day, what you have to do, if you have to send the letter to your rabbi with a question, eventually another letter will come back with the answer. That's what's called responsa. So what happened is some of these famous rabbis, their students, or sometimes they have secretaries, they will collect or they will copy all these answers, and eventually that will be published. And the responsa is the book, the compilation of all the letters that these rabbis sent back. So it includes the original question and then the answer. Okay? So what I'm reading here is a responsa. It's one of these back and forth. So it's not Google, it's Google before Google. So it said, that which you ask, from where do we know that a 13-year-old is considered an adult? Know that this was given to Moshe at Sinai. What does it mean? What is he saying here? He's answering Elizabeth's question. When you ask, why 13? Why the number 13? So what is the rabbi saying? Sorry?
It's in the Torah.
It's in the verbal Torah.
Oral law.
The oral law, yeah.
So this is fascinating. If you know how to read between lines, what this rabbi is saying is, I have no clue. You are asking me, why the age 13? And the rabbi said, I have no clue. This came from Moshe and Sinai, so it means it's oral law. Why do we...
I was asking you because I was thinking maybe I'm not learned enough to remember where that came from.
No. That's why I said that there is no real reason. It's arbitrary. So this thing, what is it? The 1200s in Germany. Somebody asked the rabbi, why 13? What is it? The person probably said, I read the Torah back and forth, and the number 13 attached to the bar mitzvah doesn't appear anywhere. So the rabbi answers, this is oral law. Means, I don't know why. But all you have to know is this was communicated orally from God to Moses and Sinai, and then Moses taught that to Joshua. Joshua taught that to the elders, and so forth. So now we celebrate the bar mitzvah at age 13.
If you look at other religions, I know Filipinos have a ceremony at 16. The Christians have a ceremony. So it's or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah,
Orally, that you knew it was a time, puberty, that it seemed to make common sense to celebrate at those ages, and not just in Jewish law, but in the world.
it's called rite of passage.
I see.
And you will have it in virtually every culture, different age, because sometimes the rite of passage, if you analyze some, it could be, there are some people in Africa that they will have at a certain age when they are physically strong enough to become a warrior, right? So it depends on the needs of the community. They will have different rite of passage. That bar mitzvah is the Jewish way of doing it. I'm not saying that is the best way. When you start thinking that, 13 is the best age because we are Jews, that kind of thinking is called triumphalist. Have you ever heard the word triumphalism? Triumphalism is when you think, my religion is the best, and your religion sucks. It's terrible. Judaism has lots of triumphalist moments that they are unfortunate, right? I will give you another example of triumphalism that is present in Christianity. If you don't embrace Jesus, you don't go to heaven. It's triumphalist. Okay? So this is the way. When you say this is the way, it's a triumphalist thing. So to say that the 13 is the best, that's why we have the bar mitzvah, it's a triumphalist thinking, and we don't do it. We don't think like that anymore. We do it because it's the tradition, and we continue with the tradition. Because if you ask me, maybe 13 is too soon in these days to do it. I will wait a little longer until the kids can focus on a bar mitzvah lesson, right? So, yeah. Questions?
I have a statement. My father was Catholic, and they sent me to a Catholic school. I was educated in a Catholic school system all the way through. I asked a lot of questions, and they liked that very, very much. I asked a question, what about the tribe in Africa? At that time, what did we know about Africa other than what we saw in National Geographic? We didn't know that there were cities there. We weren't taught that at that time. I said, are those people not going to go to heaven because they don't know Jesus? And the teacher said, yes, they're not going to go. And that was the scholar.
No, but that is again, that is a triumphalist mentality. The one who wrote extensively against having a Judaism that is triumphalist was, believe it or not, Rabbi Zalman Schachter.
Oh, yeah, I knew him.
He wrote a lot about that, trying to remove triumphalism from Judaism. Yeah. It was part of a big part of the renewal philosophy.
That surprises me.
Okay, because he was Chabad originally, but yeah. So, for those of you who were asking about the bat mitzvah, let's go to the next text. We are on text F. Okay? A girl becomes bat mitzvah at 12, whereas a boy becomes bar mitzvah at 13. Because the body's physical development goes in tandem with emotional and spiritual maturity. And because girls develop earlier physically, the emotional and spiritual maturity is earlier too. Okay? So they needed to decide on a date for the bat mitzvah as well. So they said it has to be earlier. Because if we are, again, this is rabbis trying to understand the why of the 13. Even though the previous rabbis say it's coming from Sinai, it doesn't stop you from trying to understand the why. Right? When you don't understand the mitzvah, in Judaism it's called a chok. And when you do understand the mitzvah, it's called a mishpat.
Literal translation of a chok.
Is ordinance.
Pardon me?
Ordinance.
Ordinance, oh, okay. Because in Dutch, that's gambling.
No, it's ordinance and chok. And then mishpat is the law. Laws and ordinances. But basically what it means, if I say to you, there is a mitzvah, this is true, it's a mitzvah, one of the 613. You cannot mix in the same garment wool and linen.
That's right.
Explain that to me, please. Why?
Unequal strength, isn't
And
it?
why? What's wrong with it?
Don't know.
It's a chok.
It's a chok.
If I say to you that the Torah says, you shall not commit murder.
But you can kill.
But you shall not commit murder. Do I have to explain the why to you? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. That means it's not a hawk, it's a mishpat. So the bar mitzvah is kind of a hawk. It is the way it is. We don't know why. But nevertheless, with the same with all the mitzvot that we don't understand, we try to understand it. Perfect example is during the high holidays. Why do we blow the shofar? Maimonides says, the shofar is a hawk. Nevertheless, I will explain to you why. Even though it's a hawk, we try to understand why. So Y13 is a hawk, but it looks like it has to do with physical and emotional development. Okay? So that's what it says here. That's the whole idea of the two. How do we know that? Well, if we keep reading the next text, it will be another source about this. And this is from the Mishnah. And it says, a girl that has grown 2 pubic hairs is obligated in all of the mitzvot of the Torah. Okay? A boy that has grown 2 pubic hairs is obligated in all the mitzvot of the Torah. Who grows 2 pubic hairs first? Girls or boys? Right? It's coming from there. The concept that bat mitzvah should be before the bar mitzvah. Okay? And there is a Mishnah that is connecting the moment of studying Torah or bar mitzvah, right, with adolescence, which is bringing us back to the parsha when they said that the boys grew up. What does it mean that the boys grew up? Jacob and Esau, they became adolescents, right? And they have now the new urges, right? And new strengths to do what they want to do. Because one of the things with the kids, they may want to do other things, but they don't have the strength or the means to do it. But once you become bigger and stronger, then you take more risks. And that's when you start showing your character, or it's more evident. And that's what happened. So what you can see here is that once you start growing up, once you start becoming stronger, once you start having new urges related to hormonal changes and muscular changes and all that, who's going to guide you in the new stage? We already read that your parents are not responsible for you anymore. So where is the guidance going to come from?
Well, hopefully still from the parents, that they don't have.
Okay, but where else?
Society?
Sorry?
Pressures?
The Torah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
The Torah. That's why bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah at that age. When you start getting all these new things, right? The Torah is the one who's going to give you a frame to channel all those urges into something productive. So that's why you have to intensify your study of Torah and fulfilling of the mitzvot at that age.
And it is a responsibility.
Yeah.
To teach the children how to read so they can read Torah.
But it's an age that you can't start doing whatever you want anymore. But the Torah is the one that's going to guide you in this new life and hopefully for the rest of your life. That's why whenever we have bar bat mitzvah ceremony, we ask the kids to write the Devar Torah, to understand that the Torah is going to be the one guiding them for the rest of their lives. The parents will not be there forever. Hopefully, God willing, it will be until they are 120 and in good health. But eventually, the Torah is the one who's going to be with you to the end. That starts at the age of bar bat mitzvah. Yep. Next one. Every person needs to know that from the moment that his reproductive organs begin to develop, he is no longer living in a personal, private state of existence. Do I have to explain this one?
No.
Good. These physical processes enable him to be a parent to children, a progenitor of a new generation. The life that he received from 3 partners, Father, Mother, and Creator, he is now commanded to pass on to the next generation together with his 2 partners, the spouse that God will send him, and the divine spirit that will reside between them. Preparation for the great responsibility of parenthood must begin from the initial moment of sexual maturation. The young person must even then understand you will be a parent to children, or you can be now be a parent to children. So you need to learn responsibilities. And what we do in Judaism by having the ceremony of bar bat mitzvah is a moment to memorialize that time when hopefully you learn, right, that you have new responsibilities. We make it public, that thing. Now, let's continue. Now, the Rambam, remember I mentioned how the Rambam tried to explain why we blow the shofar, even though the shofar is a hawk, is something I have no explanation. He loved doing that with all the mitzvot. He loved to try to get all these inexplicable commandments and nevertheless try to explain the why. After all, Maimonides was a philosopher and a rationalist. Many of his contemporaries, they were into Kabbalah and mysticism. He was into rational understanding of the Torah and the commandments. Good for him, because he brought balance, these two sides. So Maimonides, the Rambam says, the 13-year mention for boys and the 12 mention for girls are neither lunar years nor solar years. Rather, years following the Jewish calendar, which correlates the solar and lunar years. These solar and lunar combines years that are used for all counting with regard to religious matters. So in other words, this was another question. How do you calculate the 12 or 13 years? I don't know if you realize this, that in the Torah, the years supposed to be lunar. What does it mean, lunar? We follow the cycle of the moon. When is the new month in Judaism? The new moon, right? But, and I don't know what God was thinking. The same Torah says that the festivals are attached to the seasons. So for example, Passover is the season of spring, right? Which is a problem, because the Torah says the date of Passover, but also says that it has to be spring. If the date is purely lunar, you should know that the lunar year is 11 days shorter than the solar year. So basically in 3 years, you are a month off. So how can you prevent Passover from moving away from the spring? So eventually you have to add an extra month. And we also have some of the months of the Jewish calendar that sometimes some years are 29 days, some years are 30 days. Perfect example was the previous month of Cheshvan. Could be 29 or 30. How do I know that? Because I came Friday morning to lead the service. I got the Yortzeit list, and it says, instead of Rosh Chodesh, it says Cheshvan 30. I says there is not Cheshvan 30 on 5786, right? It's Kislev first. Well, it's a glitch in the system. Because sometimes the system don't calculate this, that sometimes Cheshvan is 29 days, sometimes it's 30. So we have to make adjustment. A perfect example of a calendar that does not make adjustments is the Muslim calendar. The Muslim calendar is 100% lunar. How do we know that? When is Ramadan? When is it? You never know. Sometimes it's the middle of the winter. Sometimes it's the middle of the summer. How could that be? Because it's attached to a lunar date. And because they don't have the pressure to synchronize celebrations with seasons, it doesn't. Sorry?
You said they don't
have the pressure, they don't have the commandment to synchronize festivities to a season, so it just follows the lunar. So in Judaism, then I guess the rabbis will say, okay, but now the 13, you should be following 13 lunar years or 13 solar years. And what the Rambam said, no. It's 13 years of the way we count the years, which is lunar adjusted by the sun. Well, that's why we still celebrate the Bar Mitzvah on the Hebrew date, but in the solar year. Just, it was We are Jews. Of course it's complicated. Of course. What can you expect? Now, another thing, that this is going to complicate things a little more. And it's going to answer the question, or it's going to try to answer the question, why do we need to celebrate the bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah? Why? Listen to this, and then I will ask again. Rabbi Hanina said, greater is one who is commanded and performed than one who is not commanded and performs. What does it mean?
Did you say commanded or commended?
Commanded. Commanded. So it's basically what it says is, if you observe the commandments out of the goodness of your heart, it's not as good as if you obey the commandments because God said so. Most people will have it backwards, right? That is better if you do something out of your good heart, that is, you do it because somebody else told you to do it. Am I right?
It wasn't your own idea.
Yeah. So then we have a problem with the celebration of the bar mitzvah. Because why don't we celebrate the boys and the girls whenever they decide to, commit their life to the commandments? When they are mature enough, they said, I want to do it out of my own conviction. I will come here and you will celebrate me. No, we celebrate them when Judaism said that you have to be a bar or bat mitzvah. And that you will see some of the kids that they are not so happy, that they have to go and study and read Torah. And they have to. It's the law. But what the Talmud says here is when you do something because it's the law, it's at a higher level than if you do it because you want to do it. How do we explain that?
Well, you're following the rules.
But isn't it better if you do it because you want to do it?
Maybe not.
Right, yes.
Well, that's not an option.
Sorry?
That's not an option.
It's not an option. But you will expect that, let's think about any law, right? What is more meritorious? To stop at a red light, right? Because you know that it's safe, or to stop at a red light because if you don't, you get a ticket. What is better?
They're both the same.
Well, the behavior is the same, but the reason is not. And most people will think that it's better if you stop because it's safe than if you stop because the law said so, right? Well, in Judaism, we have it the other way around. It's better if you do it because you're commanded to do it than if you do it because you want to do it. How do we explain this? Glad you asked. Next one. The Tosafot, which is a medieval commentary of the Talmud, they say, the explanation is that someone who is commanded must constantly struggle to overcome his personal desires in order to fulfill the commandments of his Creator. I don't know if you realize that. Because sometimes, as I mentioned before, when you have the kids that they personally don't want to study to prepare the bar mitzvah, the bat mitzvah. They rather go outside to play with their friends or play video games or whatever they do in these days. I'm getting old because I don't play video games, but that's what they do. So, right? But if you do it because God said so, you are constantly overcoming your, what you call the evil inclination. And that's the merit. Because you are recognizing the authority. Who is the authority? God. When you do it because the Torah said so, you are saying, I do it because I believe that God gave me this law. And that's why they say that it's a greater achievement to do it because God said so, than to do it because you want to do it. There is no merit on doing it because you want to do it, because it's your nature. Yes?
In real life, it's like you run into a stop sign when you're out on a country road where there's no traffic whatsoever, and whether you stop at that stop sign,
Yeah.
it's the law, because no longer is the question of safety, and you stop the stop sign rather than going through it.
Yeah.
And nobody's watching. So it's like you're setting your kavanah to do the right thing, and it elevates you.
But for us, there is someone always watching.
Exactly.
And we as Jews believe a concept that is called Dina ve'malchuta Dina, which means the law of the land is your law. So if you stop in the middle of nowhere and a stop sign because it's the law, technically it's also Jewish law because it's the law of the land. So that's why we stop, because it says that we stop, even though inside yourself you have a little voice saying, keep driving. It's okay, nobody will see you, right? But you stop anyway, because every time you do it, you're learning to overcome your evil inclination. So that is part of the celebration of a bar mitzvah. It's the time where they learn to overcome the little voice inside the head that said, don't do it, Torah is not for you, it's an old thing, it's outdated, you don't need it.
Yeah, I don't have to follow the rules.
Yeah, but you do it anyway because it's a way to recognize God's authority. That's why we have this big celebration. Because you can have people or kids that they may be feeling or practicing even before the age of the bar mitzvah, but that's because they want, which is great, but it's better if you do it because God said so. It's a bigger statement, let's put it that way. I have some comments here online, but one that says, what about women wearing tzitzit? Not obligation, but they show a passion. Yeah. Nothing stop you for fulfilling all the commandments that maybe you don't have to, but it's not the same that if you have to do it. You see, I will go to the next text. Which text is now? Text L, page 3. Rabbi Yosef said, formerly, you see, this is what we're talking about. Formerly, in the past, I used to say that if someone will tell me that the law is according with Rabbi Yehuda, who maintains that one who is blind is exempt from the performance of the mitzvot, I will make a feast for the rabbis. Why? Because although I'm blind, I still fulfill them. Now, however, I have heard the ruling of Rabbi Hanina, who says that greater is the reward of one who performs mitzvot out of obligation than the reward of one who performs them while exempt. It means that you don't have to, but you do it anyway. Therefore, if someone were to tell me that the law is not accordant with Rabbi Yehuda, I will make a feast to the rabbis, because if I am obligated in a mitzvot, then my reward will be greater. So in the sense that we celebrate that from now on, bat mitzvah, boy, girl, they are obligated to fulfill the mitzvot. That's why they are going to fulfill them from now on. Not because they want, it's because they are obligated. And the Talmud says, what do you do? A feast. We celebrate that. The fact that now they are obligated. Sounds counterintuitive. But the Talmud already went through this. And they analyze both aspects. So we celebrate the fact that now it's mandatory for them. Which will take a while for the kids to understand. Yes?
And at what point did the girls start Saturday morning? Because they could only do Friday night.
Well, but that is...
What time?
That is... yeah, that is...
Nothing?
That is tradition. That is tradition, and it's the way the tradition evolved. So I want to go now to, hold on. I think it's time to wrap it up. So I want to go to which text? Text R. Let's go to text R. I believe it's this. Listen, this is about the bat mitzvah, 12:30. Listen to this. It's one of my favorite texts from the Talmud Masechet Nida. A rabbi taught, these are the rulings of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. But Rabbi Eliezer maintains that the age limits assigned to the girl apply to the boy, while those assigned to the boy apply to the girl. What is he saying?
No difference.
No, this Rabbi Eliezer says, bat mitzvah for girls should be at age 13.
Yes.
And bar mitzvah should be at age 12. He's challenging the rabbis. He says it should be backwards. Well, we have to explain now. Why? Why is that? Rabbi Hizda said, what is Rabbi's reasoning? As the verse states, the Lord fashioned even the side. So this is talking about the creation of Adam and Eve, right? How was Eve created from Adam? How? It's not a rib, it's the side, okay? But the verse said the Lord fashioned, and the Hebrew word for fashion is va'even, okay? Va'even. You will see why this is important to know. This teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, endowed the woman with more insight, binah. So when the Torah says that the woman was fashioned, and the word is va'even, even the root of the word va'even and binah means insight, are the same. So it's basically the verse is not just saying that Eve was created from the side of Adam, it's saying Eve was created with insight, with natural insight. Okay? So once this rabbi understood this, he said, hold on a moment. That means that if a woman has more insight than the man, right, should have the bat mitzvah earlier. Right? That's why bat mitzvah at age 12, bar mitzvah at age 13, because the women have natural insight. So let's go back to this. And what is the reasoning of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar? Said Rabbi Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. Since the boy attends the study house of his teacher, his cleverness develops earlier. So this other rabbi was saying, yeah, well, okay, I take your word that the women were created with binah, with insight. They have this natural talent to understand things earlier, but they don't go to school. Boys go to school. So they have an edge because they can supplement not only the binah that they don't have from birth, on top of that, they learn all the words from the rabbis, so they should have the bar mitzvah at age 12. You get it? This is the way, remember what I mentioned at the beginning. I can try to sugarcoat to you the fact that in traditional Judaism, women are usually delegated to the second category. And this is a perfect example. This rabbi would say here, out loud, he would say boys should have it at 12 and girls at 13 because girls don't go to school. They're ignorant. So boys go to school, so they have the bar mitzvah earlier. The women, they need one more year to figure it out, even with the binah that they have from birth. Thank God that's not the when it went, and they decided to take the midrash that says that women have the bat mitzvah at age 12 because of the natural binah, the natural insight, that it will bring the intellectual maturity earlier in women than in boys.
That's true.
That's what the Talmud says. I'm just saying, no judgment, just repeating the words of the rabbis, and that's the law, the way we do it. And so to wrap up, I brought for you the last text you have. I quoted the whole verse, Genesis 2:22, and the Lord God fashioned the rib that had taken from the man into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And you can see there, if you read Hebrew, the word va'even, bet nun, those two words, same word, same root of the word binah, insight. That is, I don't want to get Kabbalistic. Any questions and any comments? Just noted, we had lots of people online. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
I have one comment.
Yes.
This quite a few years ago, you and I, and a few other people.
Okay.
Yeah, I just remembered.
You remember, I may have taught it in one of the Torah L'chaim.
Yes.
When I never went into this depth, because Torah L'chaim I like to cover different parts of the Parsha, but I may have brought some of this text to study. So now you know the source of bar bat mitzvah, right? What is the main source of the number 13? Oral law. And that's all you need to know. Oral law. Then after that, you can try to understand it. But at the end of the day, we do it the way we do it because of oral law. And we have no right to change it. Okay? That's it. Thank you everyone for coming. Next week is Cantor Leslie. She's going to do, I think she's going to take a tour of the different Sifrei Torah, explaining everything about them. Where were they written, the style that they were written, and all that. Thank you everyone, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for your comments as well. Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Tiyeh.
I was going to say, my experience, people who roll through stop signs roll through a lot